All right, rock and roll. Welcome one, welcome all to the Scorched Earth, a liberals podcast. And if you could hit that like and subscribe button, it means a lot to us. Feel free to drop a comment, friend or foe, it really doesn't matter. Let's get in the ring and let's go. And I will respond to them all in a timely fashion. And I hope you had a good weekend. Literally, I love this time of year. Fall is really my favorite time. I've been to New England a couple times. I love the New England vibe, especially now as we're heading into Thanksgiving and Christmas. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have wonderful weather. And let's get to it. Let's burn it all to the effing ground. And the World Series is going on. Love baseball. I'm a baseball fan. And currently the Los Angeles Dodgers are playing the Toronto Blue Jays for the right to be called world champions. And as much as I enjoy the games, what I enjoy even more is that the province of Ontario, Canada, is actually running ads talking about how idiotic Trump is with his tariffs. Oh, you got to push the taco. Keep pushing the taco. And the ads have a speech, excerpts from a speech that Ronald Reagan, a Republican, revered Republican president, gave in 1987 from Camp David, in which he talked about how disastrous tariffs are for an economy. And it is weird to think about. I grew up in an era, maybe some of you did, where the Republicans always espoused free trade and what was going on with the system. And now we live in a system where they've literally done a 180. And I don't know how we got to that point, but we sure did, and we got there fast. So they have Ronald Reagan on from the speech talking about that. Well, that didn't go over well with Donald Trump, right? He got a little angry because somebody who was smarter than him, and I got to be honest, if I'm calling Reagan smarter than somebody, they got to be pretty stupid. I mean, I'd put that in the George Bush. Isn't it funny? All the presidents who came after Reagan, really on the IQ meter, they're pretty low. George Bush, Donald Trump. But Donnie got mad because it was in the World Series. Maybe because Toronto had a 1-0 lead. It is tied up as we speak on this, 1-1. But he got angry. He actually co-opted the Reagan Library to say it was taken out of context. Well, no, it wasn't. That's what Ronald Reagan believed and the Republican Party believed until Donald Trump rolled into town. And so he said he was going to end all trade negotiations with Canada that he said were currently being held, and that he was vindictively going to put another 10% surcharge on the already existing tariffs. Now, we keep wondering what happened to the 90 trade deals and 90-day thing. I guess Canada was one of the big primary trading blocks. They are our biggest trading partner, but we still haven't got a deal done, and now he just jacked it up another 10%. You know, the first response he had after they ran it was he called them fake and fraudulent, which is really ironic after a week of him posting a video with him in his little king hat, because I guess that gets his jollies, in a fighter jet. I'm sure he could have passed that physical. And literally crapping on peaceful protesters in America. That's cool with Donald, but Canada running an actual speech, excerpt from a speech by Ronald Reagan, he considered that fake and fraudulent. Yeah, this administration's really living in reality. Really in reality. All right. Also this weekend, we found out quite a bit, and it's funny, the process of discovery. We found out this week that as the Trump administration institutes these tariffs that are crushing American farmers, who 75% of them voted for Donald Trump, who has crushed their soybean market. There have been no soybean orders from China, which was our largest customer last year, over $13 billion in soybean orders since May. Zero. The same amount of times that Donald Trump has done the correct moral thing. Zero. And the farmers are getting crushed. Now, the administration is talking about taking some of this mythical, well, it isn't mythical, it's real, tariff tax money and giving it to the farmers. I guess it's socialism when it's good to the Republicans. When it's for SNAP or WIC or any of those things, it doesn't really count. So, Scott Bessent on ABC's This Week was asked by Martha a question, and he came out with the answer of, Martha, I'm a soybean farmer myself. I feel the pain of these tariffs. Okay, let's just start digging down on that. Let's do a little bio in case you're not aware of Farmer Scott. Farmer Scott has spent his life on Wall Street, his adult life, after he got out of the military. He has accumulated a fortune somewhere northwards of $500 million. Yes. And I thought all the little brown smudges on his nose were just from kissing Donald Trump's butt. Probably. But maybe it's from doing that He-Man work that farmers do. He says that he has a $25 million worth of land that harvests corn and soybean in North Dakota. And I'm sure that's not for tax reasons. And, as he tries to act like he is feeling the pain, I'm sure that other $500 million helps soften the cushion. I will say this, the only thing this clown is harvesting, and everybody else in this administration, especially when we saw them extend the tax benefits and the tax cuts for the billionaires in the big, beautiful bill, is they're harvesting our hard-earned money into their pockets. That's all these clowns are doing. These are clowns and criminals. And we got the other criminal. He's over in Asia, right? So he's going over there on his 5-day Asia trip. And when he landed in Malaysia, he started dancing. And I don't know what's worse, watching him destroy America or him dancing. Because literally, they're both life-altering. They truly, truly are. And Donald Trump's over there, going to do his 5-day Asia grift tour. And make no mistake, that hot mic that caught him talking with the president of Indonesia 2 weeks ago about make sure you call Eric on that business deal. I'm sure Indonesia is ready to pop up another golf course or resort for the Trump family empire, right? So now they're over there, and the ambassador to NATO, who happens to be Matt Whitaker, who is an abysmal failure at the Department of Justice in Trump 1.0, he said that this week will be crucial to doing sanctions on Russia with Chinese help. And that really baffles me because for the first 10 months, they haven't done anything. They haven't done one bloody thing. And now all of a sudden, they're talking about we need China to help us. Well, last week, they said they were going to sanction 2 Russian oil companies, but actually there's no paperwork on that yet. So we're going to have to see how that all comes out in the mix. But also, what we're seeing is we have on September 2nd and 3rd, we had President Xi and President Putin met in Beijing at a summit in which they called each other dear friends, right? So they call each other dear friends, but somehow after Trump has talked about escalating tariffs on China 100%, they're this enemy, all that, in a week, we're going to get them to agree to sanction Russia. Now, interesting little fact I found out in researching this podcast, February 4th of 2022, President Xi and Vladimir Putin at the Winter Olympics announced that they were closely aligned against the United States. Who was the president back then? Yes, it was the great Joe Biden. And why were they aligned against him? Because he stood for something. His word meant something. When he said something, he carried it out. He wasn't like Taco Trump, who just blows a lot of hot air, and then 10 minutes later, it's like Chinese food. 20 minutes later, it didn't really exist. You didn't even remember you had it. You didn't even remember Trump said it. How many times has he went back and forth on tariffs? I mean, literally. This guy's like ping pong, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And at the end of the day, he gets skunked. Do you think at the end of this week that China will, first of all, call Trump a dear friend? That's not on the bingo card. Do you think at the end of this week that they're going to be worried about anything Trump says? You know, he just told us he was going to put another 100% tariff on them. And we are seeing evidence coming out of the administration on Sunday, when we're doing this podcast, that they're talking about, we have real optimism on a trade deal here. They are putting all their chips in the middle of the pot. And if you ask me, when you go into negotiations, you don't show your hand. You don't tell them that we're optimistic. You say, well, you know, we're cautiously optimistic. We're intrigued by some of the ideas we're hearing. Why give China the leverage? I mean, this guy talks about the art of the deal. Oh my gosh. This guy makes deals that are worse than the Indians selling Manhattan for $23. But let's see if he can get China on board with the Russian oil sanctions, which I got to tell you this, spoiler alert, it's not going to happen. China's been supplying them with weapons, drones, money during this Ukraine war. They just had a summit with all the people Donald Trump was really good at uniting all the countries that hate us in one beautiful summit. We had Kim Jong, we had Vladimir Putin, we had President Xi, and then the free agent out there was India's Modi. He actually came over and said, hey, let me see what you guys got. You know, especially after Trump put a 50% tariff on them because he didn't like them buying the Russian oil that they've been buying for the last 25 years. Thanks. Wow, didn't see this one coming. Yeah, it's literally Xi and Putin are going to play Trump. We know what the end game is. We know how it all comes out. Let's move on to the next story. Let's talk about, as we head into the fourth full week of this Republican government shutdown. And I want to bring up something really interesting. Last Thursday, I'm going to do a short on this tomorrow. Last Thursday, we had Donald Trump announce that $130 million had been donated by an anonymous donor to pay the military's paychecks this week. This would have been the first week that they had went without pay. I did some research. There's 1.3 million armed servicemen and women who currently get paid by the United States government each and every week. Well, let's see if we can do the math. And you know, there's a cute saying that goes on with the kids. They go, I don't do that math, and something like that. I know I'm butchering it. And if you're young, go ahead and give me the middle finger. I probably richly deserve it on that one. The math and don't work out, I think, might be it. And they said, well, 1.3 million, and he gave 130 million. Are we trying to believe that the armed services only make $100 a week? I mean, how does that really work? Yeah, okay. Maybe another little BS thing, but I digress. Let's talk about, as the shutdown goes on, let's talk about the state of air travel in the United States. It is grinding to a halt. And Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, went on Fox News and said, this is becoming very stressful for the air traffic controllers. Wow, what a genius statement. Wow, really, really bloody brilliant. First of all, they've went a month without paychecks. Most of them are having to find side hustles or alternative means of acquiring money so they can sustain just living as they work for free for the government in the hopes that Donald Trump will magnanimously give them retro pay when this government shutdown comes to an end. And obviously he's really concerned about it because he's in another country right now. Congress is shut down. They can't pass a CR. Oops. Yeah, right. Good. Really, really concerned about this government shutdown coming to an end. But as we're dealing with the air traffic controllers, you know, literally trying to figure out how they're going to get gas in their car to actually go to work, we had an interesting situation at LAX on Sunday. Fifth busiest airport in the country. They had a 45-minute ground delay. Now, in this case, at LAX, it was because they did not have air traffic controllers to direct the planes coming in or going out. Now, they were able to use another system to bring planes in because of fuel issues, but they did not let planes take off for 45 minutes. That is a serious effing thing. Now, my little brother took off from LAX on Sunday, 5-hour delay. Now, think about this. One of the busiest airports in the world, for 45 minutes, not one plane took off because they did not have enough air traffic controllers to deal with incoming and outgoing simultaneously. I mean, we've had this issue in Los Angeles, Burbank Airport. It was noted 3 weeks ago. Actually, was stopping flights from taking off after 4 p.m. because they did not have enough air traffic controllers. Obviously, air traffic controllers is a sticky wicket. I think they've been underfunded by both political parties for way too long. They are too valuable to what the commerce and the business of this country does in terms of air flights. But now we're dealing with a situation where planes are coming to a halt. And as these air traffic controllers, these brave men and women who do a thankless job, and like we've reported on this podcast, typically 90% of them work 6 days a week at a minimum of 55 hours. So it's not like they're just doing their 40 and they're out. It's literally a critical situation. And then to think about them going into 4-5 weeks without a physical check, but that same time, they have to pay for gas. They have to pay for food to go to work. And that whole time, they can't get a side hustle, that 12 hours that day, they can't do a side hustle to get money for their rent, groceries, utilities, things like that. I mean, we're living in the real world. We're not living in the billionaire world that is the Trump administration. You know, the one where Scott Bessent says he's a farmer. Oh my God. Yeah. And LeBron James is a mechanic because he put gas in his car. Yeah, okay, let's get on that. You know, this shutdown is all because of the Republicans. And I get comments every day about it. They blame the Democrats. The Democrats, let's go through it again. Just like the big, beautiful bill, you don't need one vote from a Democrat in the House or the Senate because you control both chambers. You also control the presidency. You don't need one of our effing votes. Your problem is you have ultra conservatives in both the House and the Senate who are stopping that getting passed from your own party. And if you want to use the 60 vote rule in the Senate, you want to think you're going to talk about that little CR maneuver, the cloture, I think it's called, that doesn't count because last month you confirmed 125 federal judges just using an up and down, 52 to 48. You can do the same here, but you're not going to do it because you're angry about pissing off people in your own political wing. I mean, at some point, they're owning it, and you're seeing the polls. The last poll I saw was 64% of Americans blame the Republicans. That's almost 2/3. And I'm wondering, how does the 1/3 not blame them? Are they all related to them? Are they all the political allies, aides, brothers, sisters, moms, daughters? I didn't know we had that big of an infrastructure of corruption. All right, that's it for today. If you could, drop a comment. I hope you have a lovely Monday. I hope you have a good week and come back to us soon at The Scorched Earth, a liberal podcast, and we'll see you soon.